Soul Hackers 2 is not a bad game. As a matter of fact, it's actually a good game. The problem is, why is it just a good game? This is a game that should have been amazing, or as some might call it, it should have been greatness. This is a game that could have easily went for a touchdown, but decided to just kick a field goal. It seems to have had all the right tools to be a step above the rest. Great graphics? I think so. Check. Amazing character design and artwork? Check. Sleek menus and presentation? Check. Good characters? Check. A compelling story? Half a check. A good challenging turn-based battle system with a lot of depth? Well, sort of. A soundtrack that keeps you locked in the action from dungeon to dungeon? As you can see, the further I get into this game, the more it starts to fall short of the mark. So let me just get into exactly what I felt happened. And guys, be sure to hit that like button. It helps me battle the YouTube algorithm. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Soul Hackers 2 puts you in control of Ringo, an AI-created life form that surprisingly has a lot of personality despite being an AI. Her and our also AI-created sister are given the task to stop the end of the world, and to do so they need other demon summoners to assist them, as they are the key to preventing the destruction of the world. Problem is, most of the demon summoners are dead. Relax, that isn't a spoiler, it's a minor part of the game that's shown off in the first hour and given in a bunch of early trailers of the game. But Ringo thankfully is given the ability of soul hacks, the power to pretty much bring the dead back to life. Don't worry, she can't use this power willy-nilly to cause some major plot holes in the story. I like how Soul Hackers 2 kind of throws you into the thick of it in a way. You have your full party before you know it, and you'll be able to customize your characters to your liking very early on. The characters are all pretty good, with Ringo especially almost being the most standout character of the bunch. She's funny, a little bit feisty, and quick to clap back at someone should they come at her or her friends. The other characters they're good. They have their own personalities and backstories that are interesting, I guess, but really don't push the envelope to make them more dimensional characters. Arrow is sort of a serious type that has a sort of hero of justice themed personality. Milady is a fairly aggressive character and wants to achieve her goal at any cost, and Saizo is the laid back jokester type. This cast is just fine. If you want to learn more about them, you can enter their soul matrix or hang out with them further to see what makes them tick, but nobody here except Ringo particularly stands out. Thankfully, the character designs help everyone stand out in a different way. Soul Hackers 2 is quite the looker, and the artwork goes a very long way into making the characters easy to like. I can't express to you how much I love this artist and how he just makes these sleek designs that are just so pleasing to look at. Makes each story cutscene more engaging as well, at least to me. The character artwork translates really well into the character models as well. And Soul Hackers 2 not only has a good character design, but also good in-game graphics. The places you visit in the city are quite vibrant and cyberpunk-esque, always keeping your eyes amused. Unfortunately, this does not apply to the dungeons. Like in any JRPG, you'll be spending a lot of time roaming around in dungeons, and they aren't exactly great to look at. They have the same design nearly from floor to floor and have the same corridors. There's not much to do in these dungeons but to solve some pretty basic puzzles to get from point A to point B. Doesn't help that I felt Ringo's running speed was a tad bit too slow. These dungeon designs kind of remind me of a dungeon crawler RPG with how they are laid out. Now, some of you might instantly think that's paying homage to the first Soul Hackers game, that game being a dungeon crawler, but even if it was, and I highly doubt that was it, they just feel bland and boring. Now, I believe the unspoken rule is that we forgive repetitive dungeon design in dungeon crawlers because they are fairly low budget, but Soul Hackers, if you ask me, feels anything but low budget. So it's kind of jarring when you have great character models, area areas that have a good amount of detail to them, and then you go into the dungeon and it's just as bland as bread. And to make matters even worse, this game decided it was a good idea to use the same dungeon theme for nearly every dungeon. Now, that wouldn't be so much of an issue if the theme was a little bit upbeat and had some energy, but it's the same boring, low energy theme for each dungeon. Why? Music is a very important component to an RPG. There's a good chance in any that you'll be hearing the same themes time and time again, and they absolutely need to be unique in order to keep the player engaged. Maybe that's just me, but that's just the way I feel it. Even RPGs with even lower budget, like the Caligula effect, have really good dungeon themes to keep the player hyped and engaged. But with Soul Hackers 2, it seems they skipped out on that. As it stands, each dungeon feels like a slow burn to get through, and it especially irks me because the soundtrack attack everywhere else is actually pretty good. Gameplay in Soul Hackers 2 is fairly familiar if you played any Shin Megami Tensei game. This is a turn-based battle system with player phases and enemy phases. Like in typical SMT fashion, if you hit an enemy weakness, you're granted an advantage. But like some of the more recent SMT games, instead of netting an extra turns, you'll be able to add another demon to the stack. At the end of the turn, you'll do a sort of all-out attack on the enemy party, and the damage will increase depending on the number of stacks you accumulated striking weaknesses. I always really admired how in SMT games they even the playing field, giving nearly every advantage and disadvantage to the player and the enemy, making it feel like if you got destroyed, it was pretty much your fault and you had to switch up your demons. However, in Soul Hackers 2, that sort of system is pretty much dropped. Only the player is allowed to use the stack feature to cause major damage, and all the enemy gets for hitting your weakness is just extra damage. I don't really like this. It makes it feel like I'm playing an SMT game with training wheels on, and there's really no underlying negative from accidentally hitting an enemy with the attack they're strong against. So before in the other SMT games where I might have worried or thought twice about using an AoE attack on an enemy party, here I don't really have to worry about that and just use any AoE skill without any real danger. Demons are of course a vital part of Soul Hackers, and it's very interesting to see that all party members can equip any demon they want, making you have more variety in your party composition. Each party member have their own strengths that they can acquire and upgrade, adding even further customization to your party. But most of the time it was really just about the demons I had equipped to each character. Rarely did I really care that my lady had augments to increase her fire damage, as I always was switching demons and that demon may not have had a fire skill. Maybe on hard difficulties you may need to pay more close attention to this. During battle, you also have special stack skills that you can use depending upon the number of turns that pass. One will allow you to switch demons of any one party member with those you have in reserve. Another will add to the stack count no matter what attack you use. Ringo also gets access to special skills exclusively. One, for example, that will have a chance of being able to revive party members if 2 or more should go down. Some demons also have special skills that have a chance of being activated during an all-out attack, or a Sabbath as it's called, that greatly come in handy during boss fights. This was weird for me, as not all demons have Sabbath skills and you can't pass them down through demon fusion, leading me to just keep certain demons in the party in order to have a chance of activating the Sabbath skill. All this makes for a battle system that's all fairly standard. There's not too much depth to it, and battles aren't going to require too much brain power. Boss fights aren't really that much different, with bosses of course having a high HP and then having the ability to summon other demons to fight alongside with them almost indefinitely. I don't have an underlying problem with this battle system. I love the way it looks and how selecting a skill gives a nice close-up to each character, but when I look back at it, this isn't going to be one of my favorite battle systems, or hell, even amongst the top 10 Shin Megami Tensei battle systems. Outside of battle, you have a map that you can travel to one locale to the other. Fun fact, if you disable the tips screen on the options page, load times become just a bit more quicker, at least to me. You can buy equipment, fees for demons, and also buy meals that can be consumed at the base for some added benefits. You also have the Soul Matrix. The Soul Matrix will allow you to dive into a character to get to know them a little bit better and gain some helpful skills for them. But the Soul Matrix is quite vast the more you go into it, and as I mentioned before, the lackluster dungeon theme, it's going to feel like a slow burn the more you traverse it. Soul Hackers 2 just feels like a game that screams the next entry is going to be much better, which I don't know if I can give the game a pass for that this time around, because I felt this game had everything it needed to succeed. It just either played it safe or was intentionally held back as to not be great. That latter part is rather an insane reach on my end, but I just can't help but shake that feeling. And I'll say it one more time, Soul Hackers 2 is not a bad game, just a game that should have been a lot more exciting than it actually is, and a game that could have made a much bigger impact on the Shin Megami Tensei franchise. And guys, that's all I have for you today. Please let me know what you think about Soul Hackers 2 down in the comments below, whether you liked it, loved it, or hate it. I want to know all about it. Be sure to hit the like button and of course subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time. Peace.